buzzword around COP22 negotiations is action, and the path to action must bring together adaptation to climate change with disaster risk management. Sharing best practices and experiences is how we advance, and advance we must. As a result of global warming, there is an increase in frequency and intensity of natural disasters. This means unreliable rainfalls, intense storms, winds, and heat waves.
At COP21 in Paris, countries have identified climate adaptation and disaster risk management as key components of actions to be implemented under adaptation. That is also a signal we have to give again and again to this negotiation process. We cannot separate this. We cannot establish, for example, disaster risk reduction policies just for natural disasters and a totally different one for climate change-induced disasters, because this might be the same disaster.
Integrated risk management is more of a process and a way of thinking. If you're building a drainage system today, you need to take into account the additional population that will be there in 20, 30, 50 years. And you also need to take into account the fact that the climate is going to change. Now, it's not easy to predict the weather, it's even harder to predict the climate, and so you need to integrate uncertainty.
Panelists shared unique responses to similar climate-related disasters.
For all the scenarios, Morocco will suffer from climate change. The result is scarcity of water resources. And beside that, we have these extreme events, floods and droughts. We have a very good policy in Morocco since 1970. It's the dam policy. We build a lot of dams.
Vanuatu is ranked as the most vulnerable country in the world. But with a tropical cyclone PAM, last tropical cyclone PAM, it's a category 5 cyclone. It's the most biggest cyclone in history in Vanuatu, but only 5 people died. That's the power of the warning systems.
Well, there are key priorities for Bolivia is to implement actions in food production in the context of adaptation, water integrated development, and in that context, well, Bolivia has developed some kind of institutional framework, and in this legal framework, risk management is already included in the adaptation.
The often complex challenges around risk management demand multi-stakeholder engagement.
We had to find a way to tackle these heavy rains and see how we could reduce the impact and the probability to have droughts. So the idea came to say, okay, we could maybe keep the water in our dams in the mountains. But for that, we had to deal with the private sector because they are the owner of these dams. You need to work with the scientists. They have to provide you reliable data. We can then give the information to the politics. We can say, now we have to take the decision.
Adaptation to climate change, we're talking about big monies as well. So we need to also get on board in which way the finance sector can contribute, the insurance sector how can contribute, and at the same time making sure that the most vulnerable, and this was clearly coming out today in this side event, the most vulnerable get served.
The benefit of insurance goes beyond providing financing after an event. Insurance puts a price tag on risks and thereby provides incentives for prevention. The insurance provides you with valuable information. How much, for example, how much would it cost to insure a certain region against flood risk? This gives you a benchmark, because then you can compare how much would it cost to build a higher dam, and by how much would insurance decrease.
There is an unbreakable link between poverty eradication, adaptation to climate change, and disaster risk management. In order to get ahead of the increasing natural disasters that we face globally, this will require strong partnerships and strong coordination.
How do we eliminate virtually poverty in the next few decades? And we believe it's possible, but we realize more and more that Every year, a lot of government program and work of NGO helps bring people out of poverty. A lot of people fall back into poverty because of these shocks, because they are exposed to small and large disasters. So we are not going to succeed in poverty reduction if we don't integrate risk management, disaster risk management in what we do. And we're not going to succeed in disaster risk management if we don't integrate the climate dimension and the fact that the world is changing, the climate is changing, and we need to take that into account.